Hello, and welcome to Global Wellness for All podcasts. My name is Laleh Hancock, and I'm going to be your host every week, every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Lisbon time, as we do this journey and adventure of wellness in all parts of our lives. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Global Wellness for All podcasts. My name is Laleh Hancock, and I'm your host. And today I have a very special friend with me, Christel Crawford. So hello, lovely. How are you?
Hello, I'm awesome. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited for our conversation. So for you guys, our topic for today is Beyond the Holiday Blues to Creation for 2020. As you guys know, we are airing in January 2022. And as much as the holidays bring us some excitement, some thrills, some joy, it also brings some blues along the way. And I was listening to actually Christel in one of her podcasts. And this topic actually of depression and suppression really pinged me to say, hey, darling, let's have a chat about this. Really know there's going to be a lot of different things that are going to be coming up for people in January. And how can we address some tools to contribute in getting to know more of what it is that you and your body are sensing and aware of? And then how do we flip it and really be able to utilize the energies that are there to creation of what you would like your 2022 to be like? So first, Christel, I mean, some people around the world know you really well, but some may not. So can you just give them a little bit of feedback of who is Christel Crawford?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, currently I am an Access Consciousness Certified Facilitator. Full name is Christel Crawford. Date of birth, oh wait. No, I'm so I am a full-time certified facilitator, and really what that means is the day in the life of me is, facilitating all kinds of classes and programs and topics and having private sessions with people and, meeting with my team and my business and doing reels and, all kinds of social media stuff. But I have always, since I found Access, my life's totally changed. And so for me, it was this opening to an intense possibility for people's lives that I just needed more people to know about. So that's me in a nutshell. So, you can just Google me. There's a few pages and you can find, you can find lots of stuff to start contributing to your life. So yeah, I've been doing that for about 6 years and it just gets greater and more fun.
Yeah. And when I met Christel, I don't even know, probably 6 years ago, somewhere in that time frame, you were living in Canada and we were traveling to different countries. And now you're in Panama, which I am so excited about. Thank you for being there and for all the changes you're creating in Panama, because we're going to eventually have my Earth Summit there. So you're just laying the land, getting it ready for us,
Cool. Yeah, that was a unplanned choice that came from really getting present with finances and looking at global taxation in different countries is totally different, and looking at what I wanted to have as a future for the business and for myself. So yeah, Panama jumped on the list and I checked it out and it was just, yes, this is a greater future, and I followed it. So we're about 6 months into that adventure, and it's just an adventure.
Wow. So let's talk about the holidays. I know we're into January, a couple weeks into it. So the holidays are starting to calm down a little bit. People are back to work. Different countries have allowed kids to go back to school now. But there's different emotions. There's a lot of different things that people are sensing and feeling and going on in their lives. And this was a topic that, like I said, I listened to your podcast and it really sparked a lot of things that I know I hear from people, whether it's in a private session or in a workshop with me, how much depression, or like you say, depression or suppression, So I'd love to actually have this conversation with you of like, let's talk about depression. Let's talk about the different energies that are coming up during the holidays, post holidays, and then really how can we use it differently?
Well, I would say it's a huge topic.
I
And,
know.
it's like, I think perhaps if you're one of those people that has been having, been handling depression for a long time, one of the first things that I would start to use, actually, this is probably just for anybody listening, is to start to recognize that is it possible that, is it possible that what you think is yours isn't? Would be really the first thing that I would go to and really look at. Um, I spent beyond the holidays, I spent so much of my life knowing that I was a sad person. Like I just was a sad person. I remember writing a whole thing about it. There were happy people and there were sad people, and I was a sad person. And it wasn't until I stumbled on Access Consciousness that I was introduced to the possibility that is it possible that like 98% of every single thing going through your head or every single feeling isn't even yours? And of course, when I first heard that, I just was like, no, that is impossible. But it did this thing in my world and it kind of stuck in there, so I started to allow it to be a possibility. And I did that by just using that one question of like, well, all you have to do to see if this is true for you is for every single thing that comes into your world, ask it something. And I'm like, well, what do you ask it? Well, ask it if it's yours. And I'm like, well, how will you know? Well, if it's not yours, it'll get lighter. And I'm like, well, that's weird. And they're like, yeah, but you are too. So, so I started asking my thoughts things like, thought, or feeling, like, are you mine? And then when it wasn't mine, it would change. The energy would change. And to me, that has been one of the simplest, most powerful applications of consciousness to something that shouldn't be able to change like that I've ever discovered. So I would say that no matter when you're listening to this, invite yourself to the possibility, no matter how improbable, how implausible, how ridiculous, that what you are feeling might not be yours. And you can find that out by simply asking your feelings things like, are you mine? And when they change, allowing them to change. And they do instantaneously change when they're not yours. And so I guess that's the first conversation I would invite anybody to, in terms of like that heaviness that comes with depression, of like, what if you started asking it things and seeing if it's actually true and real for you? Because so much of what I was bogged down by wasn't mine. Yeah. Have you played with stuff like that? Like,
Oh my God, this tool, I mean, almost 10 years into Access, and every day I'm still using this tool,
You mean
and
this tool doesn't get less relevant, it gets more relevant?
holy moly, like the more you actually allow you to have more information, like for me, I was a very successful executive in the corporate world. And the piece that I didn't enjoy was the stress. And I remember like the first time I asked it about the stress, like I'd wake up in the morning on Monday morning, and like, of course, the first thing was my phone, turn on the phone. Oh, yeah, it's already on. And then like look at the million messages. And I had only
Yeah.
gone to bed just a few hours earlier because I'm a workaholic. I tend to do it all hours. And I was like, oh my gosh, like all the things I already had to take care of for the day before I even got out of bed. And
Yeah.
that first time when I looked at my phone and I asked, who does this belong to? And then it started to melt, and I wasn't stressed before I got out of bed. I was like, what is this tool? I got to use it
What
more
is
often.
this tool? What are we doing with this thing?
Yeah, it was just amazing. And I was telling you, I just traveled from Russia, Moscow, to Slovenia.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting for me this morning, like the first few hours in bed, just talking to the businesses and talking to different things. And also like how much energy I'm aware of, especially
Mhm.
coming to a new country, new land, even the trees are louder here than they were in Russia. Oh yeah, there aren't that many where I was in Moscow. There's plenty of nature outside of the city, but in the city there wasn't that much. But it's this really that there's just so many different things that we become aware of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this one tool for thoughts, feelings, emotions, even your ideas don't all belong
Yeah.
to you.
It's huge. And it does really tie into the conversation about suppression in a weird way because number one, when you're suppressed, sometimes you know it and don't know how to change it. Most of the time, you don't even know you're suppressed. You just think that's what it is. But what I've discovered is that people who are having a hard time, or even for me, I can speak for myself, like whenever I was having a hard time functioning in some way, like if money was hard or my business wasn't growing the way I wanted it to, or if some relationship was bumpy all the time, there was always some part of me or a massive swath of me that I was suppressing. And that does tie into the depressed conversation or the who does it belong to conversation, because what occurred for me was that I wasn't told when I came out of the womb that I was aware, and I entered into this world, into a family that was incredibly intense, emotionally abusive, financially abusive, religiously abusive. They were doing the best they could, but it was a soup of like a lot of anger, a lot of rage, a lot of suppression, actually. And so when you're a super aware person, which is why we kind of propose at the beginning, like, is it possible you're more aware than you think you are? Is it possible that because you're so aware, you pick up on everything from 8,000 miles in every direction? When you burst into, you choose a family that's doing all of that and including a ton of suppression, you pick up on that too, as if that's the way to be in the world. And you keep doing it and you keep moving forward as that. And then of course you get better at it, because the more you do something, the better you get at it, even if it's awful. And then you get here to listening to this and you're like, oh my God, exactly. So it's like suppression is what we do, one, to cope with what we are that nobody around us is acknowledging. And number two, to cope with our level of awareness and to try to fit in a world where we don't. And so it's like this multifaceted and brilliant creation that we do to try to just make it. you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, where can we go with that conversation? Because I see a lot of people doing this to themselves and having done it for lots and lots and lots and lots of years. And I mean, the way around it for me was like just multiple access classes. I just had to keep applying consciousness to my life and continue to get the space of like, it's not only okay to be me, it's essential to be me. And how different am I? And there were so many different layers to being willing to be, because that's really suppression. Suppression is our unwillingness to be. But we've just decided so many different things about if I be, then, I'll destroy everything. I mean, it's all this unconscious, super unconscious stuff. But if I be, then, fill in that blank and see what's really there for you. And that's our reason for like putting a lid on it. So yeah, I wonder like, what's your thing on this? Tell me more.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was interesting, like even listening to your podcast, just it triggered for me some things of childhood, like I
Mhm,
go to different countries. It doesn't matter which country I'm in.
mhm.
Every country has a lot of similarities from another country.
Yeah.
When it comes to like the kind of the fights the parents had,
Yeah.
the trying to fit in so that their family didn't judge them, didn't think they were wrong or they did something bad or they should be kicked out of the family. Like there's so many similarities, but yet everyone is so different and they have their
Mhm.
own uniquenesses and cultures. And yet it is how much, like, I remember, my mom was more advanced than most women. I mean, I was born in Iran, and Iran in the 60s was like more progressive than America, you know? I
Wow,
mean,
yeah.
the mini skirts there were like, I don't know, you could see the underwear practically, it's just so short, you know. They lived
They were
a different
band-aids.
world. Yeah, they were. They lived a different world of, being empowered. And
Mhm.
there, it wasn't about equality, but women had the ability to learn and do things, and then how things changed with the revolution. We moved to France, and I noticed so many things of, like, even my mom, who was, a business owner. My dad was very much in business, very much, he would bring commerce to rural parts of the country. He would work with the Shah. He had a lot of partnerships with government and bringing commerce and possibilities to people,
Mhm.
educating them and
Mhm.
things of that sort. So they grew up in that world of knowing things are possible and they could create it. But then I
Mhm.
saw how much things changed, when the revolution came, and just the changes of, like, how much my mom was suppressing, and
Yeah.
like, her power and the fear of things, and like how much we can go from being this dynamic person to these lies, and how much we do suppress our awareness, and how much back then they were given Valium not to be asking too many questions as women, or
Mm.
not to show their emotions and things of that sort, and then I look at us, and, like, truly the gifts that we have today. Like, my children grew up in such a different world.
Yeah.
They grew up, even though I was divorced, they grew up in a family that they knew mom and dad love them, and they have choice. Like, my kids grew up knowing, at the age of 2, I told them everything. I'd have
Mhm.
conversations with them, and they grew up knowing they can call me at any time and they don't have to suppress it. But
Mhm.
how can they
Mhm.
use it to create something greater? And so, like, I really wonder, as we have such a mixed audience base, even people who are watching or new people that are going to be watching this, it's not about your age, it's not about your family lifestyle, but how
No.
all of us have experienced so many things that we just didn't even know we were tapping into awareness wise. And then also, what are the ways that we are handling it? Are you suppressing it? Or are you now able to utilize it to actually allow that to be a creative energy as a
Mhm.
gift and be able to
Mhm.
create with it?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's and I see people responding to suppression in multiple ways, which of course, um, there's the resistance and the reaction to having been suppressed, which I will not be suppressed and I will speak my truth, and that sort of fight out of suppression that I don't see being as successful for as other ways. There's the just living with it as if it's real and true for you, and coping with the thing you've just always done. And then there's the question of, well, what's beyond, like, if I wasn't suppressed, or if I wasn't doing suppression, like what's true, like what's available, what choices do I really have? That was the question I'd never really asked myself. I just was doing me as I knew me to be, which I wasn't really having that great of a time with, but it was what I knew. And then as I added more access consciousness into my world, and I started playing with, okay, well, this isn't even mine. That was the question I realized I'd never asked, because I had just assumed this was all mine. And, we're living in a really interesting time in history where we are not only, I mean, there's been so many interesting times in history, just you talking about your mom and the
Yes.
transition from women being absolutely free to something else. Um, we're in another really interesting time where globally we're being shown daily that what we know about whatever's going on is not valuable, and only the narrative is, this narrative is what we're going with, this narrative is what we're going with, and people who are diverging from that are being suppressed and persecuted, in ways. So that's happening again. I mean, there's nothing new under the sun. It's just happening around a different topic. And so it is a good question of what will we be with this? What will you be with where you're doing it to yourself based on what you've learned and what you've created as a coping mechanism? What will you be with the suppression that other people are trying to impose on you? What will you be with this?
Yeah.
And where can you start?
Yeah. Do you have suggestions for people in terms of some of those steps? No, I get it, because not everyone
Yeah.
knows a lot about access listening to the podcast. It's really global everywhere. So some know we've had different tools we've shared, even this amazing tool of who does it belong to. And I
Yeah.
really suggest you look it up, even who does this belong to on YouTube, and you'll see a lot of us, including Christel and myself. We have different tools out there on YouTube with the tools. But it really is, also download the app. It's free, and just time it. Like, you could put it every 3 minutes or every 1 minute or whatever. Just remember, if you close the app, the reminders will not come, because that was me for a while. I'm like, hey, I close all the apps
It's
all the time.
broken.
I'm like, wait, I haven't been reminded. Oh yeah, I need the app open. But it really is to remind you
Yeah.
very often to ask, who does this belong to?
Yeah.
And for so long, you think it's yours. And then you start to realize how much more aware you are than that you have to own it all.
Yeah. And so I guess there's definitely different pathways out into like what else is possible, but I would say starting to ask a different question it's a key way of really just start with, well, what else is possible beyond this that I haven't considered? If you are one of those people that have been living as suppressed for a really long time, it's very probable that you don't even have a sense of what would be beyond that energy. And that's where, and then that's why, like, whoever you're going to be listening to this, where you are, maybe you've just suppressed yourself in a conversation recently, but maybe you've been living as a suppressed person for years. You can't even remember the time that you felt free to just be you. So that's when a different question starts to really crack open the bedrock, the solidity of the suppression that you've learned, and what else is beyond this that I haven't considered starts to allow the universe to contribute awareness of what could be beyond this. There's been a lot of things like this for me that I've had to begin asking something different around in order to even be able to perceive a different possibility or even see that I have other choices. There's been other times where I'll recognize maybe I suppressed myself in a conversation, and I can simply go back into that conversation and go, look, can we talk? Can we have another go at this? Right. Like, I wasn't really including me, and I'd like to see what else is possible with us. There's, so, if I was really including me in my life, what would be available? If I was choosing the things that really worked for me, what would that be like? Different questions you can ask yourself. What is possible here that I haven't considered? Going beyond suppression is the willingness to know that there's got to be a different possibility than just living like this. And the willingness to engage enough that you invite a different energy into your world, just enough that it begins to crack open that kind of protective shell that we can invent for ourselves that you would call suppression. So I would say, man, start with that. Start with just one different question that you just ask it all day if you want to. Ask it once a day, ask it, but start with that and see what shows up, because the universe absolutely delivers on the questions you ask. Just most of the time we're not asking.
Yeah. And we tend to ask, but already have the answers figured out. So they're not real questions either,
Mm-hmm.
One thing for me that really made a difference, Christel, and we have a few minutes if you want to talk about it, was the access bars.
Oh my
Um,
God.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh my
that,
God.
yeah. So let's talk about that. I know we just had Access Global Bars Day on Saturday, and if
Yeah.
people are interested, I'm going to put the link in here in the show notes
Oh
so
my
that people
God.
have it. Okay, let's talk
Yes,
about
get
that.
your bars run. Because then you don't have to remember anything we said. You can just lie there on the table and allow someone to touch your head gently for, an hour, hopefully, and more than that, if you're lucky. And then things just melt out of your world. So yeah, get your bars run. Oh my God. I don't even, do you remember a time before you had your cell phone?
Yes, but I don't like those days.
I barely remember it. Like I'm trying to, I only remember it from like little memories. Like I remember I was 20 years old and I had a pager. Like I don't know how that, and I don't remember when I got my first, but beyond like the pager memory, I can't remember when I didn't have a cell phone. I am the same way with bars. It's like, what the hell did I do before bars?
Yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
it's such an integrated part of my life now. Like my partner and I will run each other's bars. Anytime we're grumpy and we can't see our way out of a paper bag, anytime we look Chinese because we've been working so much, we're just like, slit eyed. Anytime basically that it sounds fun, we were running bars, and it's so easy. It's so gentle. It's like, you don't have to do any doing. You can just receive. And then when you get off the table, you either felt like you had a great day at the spa or your whole life changes. So yes, get your bars run.
And for anyone who doesn't know, you can go to accessconsciousness.com/bars, and we'll have that in the show notes too. But it's 32 points on your head, and it just melts all these. I just want to call them points of views, but they're just a lot of lies and information that you just kind of stuck in there. It's like your computer kind of slows down because you just have so much stuff on it. And then when
Yeah.
you defrag the computer, it just runs faster. Your applications are just faster again. It's the same
Mhm.
thing. Like we just keep getting like, even like, someone who like, I remember being here 2 days ago was my first day in Slovenia, and I woke up and it was sunny. I hadn't seen the sun in 4 weeks in Russia,
Oh my gosh.
So imagine it's the same thing, someone like tells you every day there's going to be no sun. Well, what's in your world? There's no sun. And then
Yeah.
you go to a place and then there's sun and then there it is. And
Oh
it's the
my
same thing.
God, there's sun.
I was like, the little things in the world that you get so excited about.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's probably the best place to start, especially if you've been depression and suppression have been a thing in your world for a long time. Just all you have to do is get yourself out to somebody who can run your bars. And that's all you got to do. Just lay there and let them touch your head. Um, that's an amazing, amazing beginning.
Yeah. And then you can also learn the bars, and then like Crystal's doing
You
with
can
her
teach
partner, lucky
them.
her. Yeah, you could teach them and let them run it for you, or you can just go to, there's lots of swaps. That's where I am tonight. We are at a swap where I got to meet some new friends here in Slovenia. And it's just, gets you to, like you said earlier, it's like we make our lives this concrete,
Yeah.
foundation. And so the bar starts to unravel all these little points of views we have, like even around your wellness or money or joy or sadness and things of that sort. And then when you take those things away, you just now have choice. Now you can actually start
Mhm.
asking questions and starting to choose. So it just puts you in I don't know. I think of it like racing, like you might have been like racing against other cars and you're kind of in the back for a while, and then it brings you to the front. It brings you to the
Yeah.
front, and now you get to choose where you're going to be driving. You don't have to be in the
Yeah.
back anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Cool. Yes.
who knew we were going to be talking about bars today? I knew.
I
I
love
don't
it so
know.
much.
I love it too. It's really one of the best things. And it's one of those things, it's even better than a massage, like a massage feels really, really amazing. And I love it, by the way. I still like to get massages, but it's just different. Like the level of creativity I have or relaxation and just the space of receiving after a bar session is just incredible.
Mm.
Yeah. So, Crystal, you're in Panama, but what fun things are you creating, and what can we share about how people can find you?
Well, I am in Panama and we are doing here and there, we're doing live events, but most of what I do is online, which is great if you're around the world. So the place I would tell you to go first is infinitebeingschool.com. If you go there, actually, you can get a free taste of all these access consciousness tools we just talked about, including Who Does It Belong To? And you're going to be exposed to the tools, see how they work for you. And there's a community there if you want to get more involved, but it's free. So I would say go there, and through the school and through, obviously once you're in the school, you're on my list. So that's where you're going to just get to know kind of the different things that are offered. It's a very different universe over here in Christel Crawford land. We very much follow the energy and, pop things up when it's time. And so it never gets boring. And you always get to kind of be exposed to a different choice and a different possibility and play if you want. So that's mostly what I'm up to, and that's how you can find me and stay connected.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for today. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
thank you.
And thank you for this conversation, because I know it's one that we need to have more of these conversations, so more people also know there's something else available, something else that's possible for them. They don't have to choose what they've chosen in the past. And just know that every 10 seconds is a new moment of space in the universe. The universe expands, and now there's another choice that's available. So thank you so much, Christel. So grateful
thank
for
you guys for listening. Absolutely. We'll see you guys soon.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you guys next week. And if you have any topics, remember you can send them to us at globalwellnessforall.com/contact. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for being here with us, whether you were listening or watching. We are so grateful for you, and we need your help. We would love to spread the seeds of wellness all around the world. Will you assist us? You can subscribe below. You can subscribe in Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. We are everywhere. And we ask, would you be willing to actually spread this to others that you may know who can actually be contributed with the tools and resources to bring more wellness into their life and into their bodies?